exciting session that we are having today. I am Chief Investment Officer at LegalPay. This is a small initiative from our end where we interact with industry leaders and experts and discuss the various trends that have been doing in the legal and insolvency financing. And today we have a very special guest with us, Hasit Seth. He's a counsel at Bombay High Court and has appeared as counsel in numerous commercial matters across sectors and forums, including arbitrations, and has experience of over 20 years spread across practice in US and India. uh, uh, we are very proud to have him because he's also a paneled arbitrator with Maldives International Arbitration Center. A very warm welcome, Hasit, and we'll really look forward to interacting and learning with your experience.
Thank you very much, Kashish and the LegalPay team. I've been hearing very good stories about you and your work. It's also an opportunity for me to learn from you.
No, absolutely, sir. And I think it's a pleasure having you with us discussing about what has been your journey. And just to, before we delve into the legal and insolvency area, I just wanted to understand, being a curious person myself, just wanted to understand how was the transition from US to India, and how has your experience been? And it is a very surprising because people actually prefer going outside and practicing in US. So how was the transition with you, and how does the transition happen?
Correct. Modestly speaking, I'm used to transitions. So let's say, because I started with an undergraduate in computer science, so I was a programmer, and that's my training. DNA. And then I switched to law. So there was already a transition. So all my friends were doing, three-figure dollar jobs. Six-figure dollar jobs.
Yeah.
So it's already transition. I was, introduced to Indian courts at that point. So the transition, I think, more than the geographical space, has been in the economic environment. The economic environment in US, where a lot of things, if they have any business value, like say, like LegalPay, if there is an economic case to be made out for its utility, then rest of the ecosystem pieces just fall into place. The investors are there, risk takers are there to share the risk, the customers are there. And we have seen, legendary stories where, say, like Andy Bechtolsheim, who was a co-founder of Sun, he made Google founders in his Porsche and just wrote $100,000 or some check, without really much asking them what you are trying to do. And Google was the 12th search engine at that point of time. Alta Vista and others were already there. So that's a bit of a difference. The ideas take a little bit more time to absorb, but I think we are far ahead of curve. I'm talking about 2010, we are in 2022. So things have changed dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you have had your experience in US also, which is a very well-known market for litigation financing, how do you feel litigation financing spanning up for India? I think, we understand it's still an early stage. We are glad to be in the early stage of the development of industry, but from your thoughts on it.
Correct. So one thing I really liked is that although the idea arose in, say, Western jurisdictions, like either London or, like US, and due to its contingency fee, openness to contingency fee and class action litigation, and then travel to Singapore and now Hong Kong in some ways. But I think, the good thing is that it didn't receive the usual reception which the Indian legal system gives to anything new. It's that, we just don't want it. Status quo is the answer. So this has received much better reception. And I think the filtration of the idea that contingency fee and litigation finance are really two different things. They are not the same thing. Absolutely. That separation had to occur, and the specialist financial agencies like yours who are coming into this picture are better than, lawyers trying to do something, do it yourself, DIY kind of thing. So that, is a very heartening thing that probably, like, because you don't want to kill ideas at very early stage or derail them. So I think that what has happened is good, I think.
No, no, absolutely. And I think we are blessed to receive blessings from the entire ecosystem and industry who is taking it in the very positive sense. And we are glad to work with all tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four law firms. And I think that's something that we feel that definitely these are the people that we want to serve at any cost. So,
Correct, correct. And I think, I have been I used to work with IP value as we were discussing, and have
yeah,
been in patent as an asset monetization licensing space. And I see the receptivity of clients directly is easier as compared to, like service providers like lawyers, I mean, to newer ideas, because clients understood that, yes, like this makes business sense and economic value, so we should be open to it. And I think we have seen number of cases like legal outsourcing, etc., where the initiative didn't come from, like lawyers or other regulated entities, but it really came from the clients.
yes.
So I
They are
mean, the American
pure
companies
business owners.
directly set up things here, I mean.
Absolutely, they're pure business owners. For them, I think, and a very special instance that for us CFOs understand us better because they think that by doing litigation financing, I'm saving money or the money cost, and that's where
Correct, correct.
they.
So I mean, I have worked with a multinational, and like was in the management team. So I can tell you, FCF, which is free cash flow, is a very big key indicator for them to keep the cash flow free and not cash like being occupied. Obviously, for a long term, I mean.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think for them. It's the idea that, see, legal is a cost center. If you look at corporate accounting, the legal function is a cost center. So
Yeah.
they're always trying to reduce its costs and manpower. And perhaps in a sense it's good because it gives more business to law firms. I mean, instead of having that let's call in people when we need them. Why do you want to increase that count? So the CFOs are always after this, that improve FCF and like reduce the headcounts of this cost center and the cost of this cost center. So if you take a proposition like that which serves both those goals,
Yes.
I'm sure the CFOs would really welcome you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And lawyers are agnostic. Who pays them? It's okay. Money is always green, so that's okay.
No, no, absolutely. That's fair. And I mean, definitely for them, it also works like kind of a pseudo insurance because
Yes.
if if they don't win the case, if they lose, they don't pay anything. So I think it works a very good scenario for them, and I think that's
Correct, correct. I mean, very, see the legal fees and the legal regulation of lawyers is such that not much innovation is possible in this space in the way we charge fees. I mean, whether it's small law firms or solo lawyers, the same regulations apply.
yeah.
All kinds of innovations are really possible when it's, like the clients, I mean, directly talking to the financiers and working whatever arrangement they want, because it's debt, equity, mix of it, all kinds of business arrangements are possible, which lawyers can't do.
No, no, absolutely. And I think for us, legal fraternity has been our godfather and grandfathers for us because that's the community we every day want to serve. And I think that's the reason.
Correct, correct. Correct, because we do have a say in these things. I mean, we may not, be participants in directly between the client and the financier, but we do have a say in these things,
Absolutely.
that how things should run. So I think their goodwill is important for you.
No, no, absolutely. And that's we closely work with. So jumping on to another shift in terms of how has the pandemic affected the businesses or the arbitral proceedings, and what do you think is changing? Because much of what we are seeing is litigation financing is also getting a push because businesses are cash stretched or they are looking for innovations because they, as you rightly said, looking for either to preserve cash, specifically of the funding winters that we are talking about, and in terms of geographical segmentation also, there are chances that you have a meritorious case but don't have a bandwidth or don't have a legal budget to actually pursue that cases. So how has pandemic changed situations, and what at the ground level that you are seeing in terms of the arbitration proceedings or court proceedings for pandemic, specifically after pandemic?
Correct. Very interesting question. So there are two aspects to it. One is the procedural aspects where the arbitration kept the things running. I mean, they given that it offers you so much innovation space in terms of procedural innovations and flexibility. People went online. Sometimes one of the arbitrations I did where the arbitrators were online because they were really old and concerned about the pandemic, but everybody else, chose to do it cross examinations in the room with the witness, and so it enormous flexibility. Some went completely online, so that's the procedural flexibility part, and things kept running. I mean, they except for the hard lockdowns when nobody could move out and all those things, I think things were pretty smooth. I mean, as such, but the uncertainty didn't help. I mean, because like you had certain dates lined up, and then suddenly something is declared that you can only go alternate days to office, or only so many people in office, and all those things. So that uncertainty, I think, did slow down things a bit, but not much. I mean, because we are lawyers, right? I mean, so finding solutions is a way of life here. I mean, people scanned a lot of stuff and work from home and all other kind of things appear. But the second thing, I think, the second part of it is how businesses tackled it as a business problem.
Yep.
So one thing, like a lot of lawyers, expected a lot of claims for, force majeure and frustration of contracts. But if you look at it, a lot of literature was produced, but those claims didn't come. I mean, except for specific cases, the deluge of claims based on force majeure and frustration of contracts just didn't happen. I mean, so that's like you need to give credit to the business people. I mean, who found out ways. I mean, even government issued circulars and like this thing about how to deal with pandemic. The courts helped by increasing limitation, because otherwise you would have to file them if your limitation was ending. So I think the ecosystem overall worked in such a way that we didn't have major economic upheavals. So when if you look at corporate balance sheets, they did very well. I mean, across the pandemic, there weren't like huge surprises. The markets did well. The stock markets, I mean, public equity markets did well. So I think except for certain people who were hit by health issues, I mean, and poverty, I mean, except for those, the business environment dealt with it in a very sagacious and a pragmatic manner. So that's what I would say. But I think the disruptions did affect them, and but they did some innovative cost cuttings and like financial juggling to manage it. That's all I'll say.
No, absolutely, and I think we as humans will try and evolve or create methods to fight around it and make it happen and even bigger. Jumping into questions about arbitration, what do you what do you or how do you see India moving from an ad hoc to an institutionalized version? Obviously, there are institutions created, but still we haven't seen much receptiveness, more so from a contractual point of view, because obviously arbitrations are derived out of the contracts. So how do you see India progressing, and how soon we are competing with Singapore?
Correct. I mean, the interesting question. So if you look at, apart from that government's old experiment of that International Center for Arbitration in Delhi, which the name they've changed to New Delhi International Arbitration Center by an act. Apart from that, we didn't have any institutions with a very commercial outlook, because if you look at arbitral institutions, they promote themselves heavily. So even 100-year-old institutions promote themselves excessively, because there is competition across the world and the seats of the arbitration. So that kind of institutions we just didn't have. So it's only 5-6 years around, like the time frame that we have had. So the time lag for the arbitration clauses to be included in the contract and disputes to arise, I think we are right at the precipice of that happening. I mean, so the numbers for ad hoc to institutional and people have been doing surveys and other things or their estimates. I think those will change in next 5 years. You will have a lot more institutional arbitrations happening, because net, if you look from a purely financial viewpoint, it is about 1 to 5%, maximum. If you look internationally, it's 1 to 5% of the cost of an arbitration which the institutions charge. At the lower end, it's 1, and at the higher end, it's about 5. And businesses can that roll into it. I mean, they think that if somebody else is there to run the process, and they and their lawyers, don't have the overall role and responsibility making sure the arbitration runs properly. So they just roll it into the costs, with their budgets, which they have. So I don't see like ad hoc. Ad hoc will continue for the reason that, India is a very diverse place with many players. So you have partnership disputes, etc., where people do deeds in, very big country, right? Somebody in Kanpur or somebody in, Guntakal or somebody, they just, how do they access institutions? So the institutions, to be really virtual and accessible and well known to people and their trust to develop, we are looking at a long curve, for that to happen. For even small disputes to go to institutional arbitration. That's the point I was trying.
No, absolutely. And I hope India moves towards that part progressively. We have lesser burden on the judiciary, and hope.
Correct. And just one more point. People compare everything with, say, SIAC or LCIA or this thing. See how, the numbers, and a lot of people write articles about the caseloads and the reports that they publish. See why the numbers are increasing. Or so many institutions are dependent upon Indian, disputes contributing in a big way. Is there a lot of foreign investments that's coming into India via PE route, VC route, or any other route? They want those institutions. It's not the recipients in India who want them. And as funders, it's their draft and their choices which kind of dominate in negotiations. And that's how these institutions are getting the business that they are getting. But now Indian law is open to 2 Indian parties having a seat abroad and all that. Let's see how many of those things happen. Time will tell.
And absolutely, I think this is the golden line that you have stated. And how we are progressing towards it.
But it's fascinating to watch the progress.
No, and hope so. We are definitely progressing towards the right parameters, and hope so we'll achieve that very soon. Thank you so much, Hasit, for taking out time speaking with us. It was a pleasure moment for us speaking with you, and hope to have you back on our platform soon.
Thank you very much, and my best wishes to the LegalPay team as you try to do more and more innovating financing models. And we all will be watching what you're doing.
Sure. Thank you so much.
With great interest. Thank you. Thank you so much.